On the podcast with markets tumbling and your KiwiSaver balances in freefall, is there an upside to all this? What goes down inevitably comes up, is that right? The pitfalls and opportunities in this tariff mess. So I'll speak with one of the country's most experienced investors in the US market. Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, welcome to the podcast. You're with the Editor-in-Chief. Evening, everyone. I'm Duncan Garner. Please subscribe. Really helpful. As the dust settles on Trump's tariffs, what has really happened here and what is likely to come next? Are there opportunities now for investors, and isn't it best just to ride this out? I know it's unsettling. We've all lost something already, and also what's coming. Anyone who says they know what's around the corner is making this up, I reckon. So let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, so 3.5 million of us have KiwiSaver accounts. They've all fallen over in the past few weeks. Billions has been wiped from our wealth, and this is now the second big shock inside 5 years. If you include COVID, which also saw the KiwiSaver accounts tumble, those are the two. This is, the first 2 days of this tariff shock, was as big as the 1987 crash. As big as the 1987 crash. Huge, isn't it? But time in the market is everything. So the advisors are right. We have to just hang in there and ride this out. But I'm with you. It's bloody gutting seeing hard-earned savings just reduce so damn quickly. But have some faith. We pay these KiwiSaver providers to invest when shares are low. There are apparently plenty of bargains right now. So look on the upside if you can. For me personally, I think my KiwiSaver is down about 40k in 10 days. As a contractor, I only get my contributions, nothing from the employer. So seeing it all go down the googler is hard. But here's hoping it bounces back, and it usually does. So hold your nerve, folks. But who knows what's going to happen with a major change in the economy? There's always a cause and effect. So for everything that goes one way, there's an equal reaction the other way. So stand by for bargains, maybe lower interest rates, opportunity with our exports, new markets and things. Who knows? With every collapse comes an opening somewhere for someone to make some money, and hopefully we are well placed. But how many of these shocks can we, the little people, ride out? Some people react really badly to this sort of thing and emotionally can't handle it. The human pain can pile up. I say breathe. There's not much we can do, but get informed and stay close to good advice. This is something we lack growing up, I reckon. I fear that no one talks about money in this country. We need to start from an early age talking about money, finance and literacy around these subjects. Share markets, investing in something other than houses, good debt, bad debt, compound interest. We don't talk about this. The importance of saving, the importance of investing wisely, what happens when there's a shock. We need to teach this stuff in schools. The earlier the better. We need to respect money, talk openly about it, not hide in the shadows and wrestle with it privately. We've failed to talk to our kids about this. There's been a major block on this in schools, and we've got to change our approach. If teachers can't provide the teachings, then bring in outside help, experts who can help talk to kids about this. People who have made it, people who have lost it all. Teach our kids about what happens in real life through the eyes of those who have and haven't done well. I bet it leaves a huge impression on them. Either way. After all, money makes the world go round, and we simply can't survive without it. Some people never learn about the power of money. Some learn in their teens, but I reckon we need to sort something out early so this gets into the Kiwi mindset. The world's so obviously changed. Shocks may well be commonplace now and part of our future, so people need to get their heads around it. And why not teach them early? People might like to get their heads around it early. Maybe talk about voting civics, because Trump's doing nothing surprising here. He told us he'd do this. We all agreed he would, so why is this such a shock now? He said he'd do it. Sure, it's a right royal mess and it's a tax on the world. Forget the word tariff, it's a giant tax, depending on how much Trump hates you. It's not a tax that helps any behaviour. It's just a tax that will add to inflation, slow the world economy. Just as we poke our nose out to enjoy a reset and a bounce back, Trump backhands the world, and America's so big and powerful, we all feel it. We all feel it. Some of us have lost money already. What can I do? Jack shit. Just learn to take some proper advice, breathe. The sun will come up tomorrow. The sky never falls, and it never does. It feels like it, but we're still above ground. Sometimes economic logic doesn't occur to some people. These people are deluded often. Some of them run countries. They operate in their own bubble. They refuse advice and refuse to accept they might be wrong. These people are for the short term. Powerful and frightening, but remember, they won't be here forever. We have no option but to ride it out and look for opportunity amongst the rubble and hope that things pan out better than we thought. I mean, no one predicted house prices to go up in COVID by 30%. The very wealthy became uber rich under Jacinda. You never know with this guy Trump. We might all suddenly be the recipients of a massive bump in the markets in the coming weeks. That's the great thing about markets. You just don't know. You just don't know what's coming. So hold on tight, folks. No one said life would be a stroll in the park, and it's certainly not at the moment.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Oh, crazy. Greg Boland from Tiger Brokers. They buy and sell in the US market and other markets. He joins me now to make head and tail of this, Greg. Man, it's big, isn't it? G'day, nice to see you.
Thanks very much. Nice to have you.
Yeah,
again.
it's how do we talk about this? What do we say about this? So we had this big collapse, off the back of Trump's tariffs. How big is this collapse? Can you give it some perspective?
In the first 2 days, the US share market was down nearly 10.5%, which is the worst performance in the share market. There's been 3 other times where it's been down that much in 2 days since the Second World War.
So is this the same as 87?
Same, like 87, like Lehman Brothers, and also like the start of COVID. So that's the magnitude of it when you compare other things like .com, long-term capital management, Asian crisis, all these sorts of things. They weren't as bad in the first 2 days as this has been.
So this was the equivalent in that first 2 days as the 1987 stock market crash in New Zealand, which is part of our history.
That's right, and a lot of our parents still talk about.
Well, they're still living in tents as a result.
Yeah,
but
right.
Anyway, did it get better after 2 days?
So the market bounced yesterday, and the S&P 500 is the benchmark index in the US, and so on Monday, their time, it bounced up about 1.5% odd, and then this morning it rallied on the back of the Asian and European markets, which were both, the European markets were up about 2.5%, and Japan was up about 6%.
Right.
But then it jumped by about 4.5% on the open, and that was on the back of the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that tariff rates may come down depending on negotiations, etc., and those who don't retaliate. So there's a warning across the bows, and then suddenly, and so he also said that 70 countries are negotiating, and there's been very. And Trump sort of said, I've had very good conversations with South Korea and Japan, and they're on a plane over to see me, which is all very well. But then later came a official Navarro, who's been the architect of this debauchery, or obliteration instead of liberation. It's obliteration day.
It is world obliteration.
Yeah. He said negotiations for lower tariffs could be a while away. So instead of the market being up 4.6%, it ended up down 1.6%.
Yeah, so it's reacting to statements as they come.
Yeah, and then also that China tariffs could be as high as 104%.
Saw that.
And so it was the biggest U-turn in the market during a session since 1978. Unbelievable.
So this is one of the 4 big collapses in our time.
Correct.
Yeah, and what's the value of that's been wiped off wealth?
Probably in the US, just in the S&P 500 stocks, about $7 trillion. Which is a huge number.
And what about our lot here in New Zealand? So we've got about 3.4 million KiwiSaver accounts. So most of New Zealand's in there.
Yep.
What have we had wiped off?
In terms of the New Zealand market itself, today the NZX was down about 0.7, and Australia was down about 2% off the back of turnaround in the US. But overall, they're all down, but not as much. We're not as affected because we're 10% tariffs, and we're probably more isolationist, and also we have a lot of global trading partners, whereas places like Canada completely rely on the US
across the border,
and same with Mexico.
Except we're exposed with our investments in America, because many of these KiwiSaver accounts, in fact most of them will probably be exposed in America somewhere.
Yep.
That's where they've been getting their returns in previous years. Yep. So we've had a lot wiped there.
We've had a lot wiped off our KiwiSaver. So
I'm 40 grand down in 10 days.
Well, all the growth funds were down in the first quarter anyway.
Yep.
They were all underperformed because a lot of them in the top stocks like the Mag 7 or the Batman stocks, as people call them, like Apple's and Microsoft's.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, I still believe in there.
And so everyone's been affected by those stocks anyway in the first quarter. But this is now the second quarter as of the 1st of April, and interesting that he changed the date from 1st of April to 2nd of April because he didn't want to be seen as an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, you see that. Well, this is reality. It's no joke.
No,
is it?
It's no joke.
So what do? Do we just hold our nerve and there's not much more we can do? Do we just have to see it out? Do we just time in the market and we just stay there?
Time in the market rather than timing the market. Hang tough and hang tight, really. And then, but also if you're an investor long term, just carry on investing, like your KiwiSaver and the like. If you're in a growth fund already, don't change. Just stay with what you've got, because if it bounces, you need to be able to take part in that bounce. And if
you want to be in the same bounce market that you have fallen, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right?
And then the FMA did a survey in 2020 at the start of COVID where a lot of 25 to 30-year-olds who've never seen this sort of thing before suddenly threw out their growth funds and went into, very safe KiwiSaver funds and then didn't take part in the upside.
So they only got the downside.
Yeah, so they only got the downside, which is not good.
Yeah, so the best advice is to hang in there and you'll see growth. Because are these KiwiSaver managers, are they buying now? Are they buying on the low? They must be. That's what
Well, it
they tell
depends
us.
how much cash they've got. So
A lot less?
Well, a lot less. Well, no, the cash amount shouldn't have changed unless they have already, holding cash, but they have an inflow of cash every week from KiwiSaver anyway. So you would assume that they would be buying. They've seen it all before. They've traded in these markets before. They know what they're doing. And, if you try and outdo the index or outdo some of these fund managers and do it yourself, it's harder. It's a harder game, but a lot of people do because they want to be traders or investors in their own name as well.
This is why we pay fees, though, right? We pay these big fees to the experts to make sure that we can get through this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we be confident that we'll get through this?
I think so, yes. It's really a matter of time and also consistency of rhetoric. And that's, the problem this morning, that one person was saying one thing, someone was saying something else, and then Trump comes out and says something completely different. So, if they can get their rhetoric correct, certainty in markets may happen. And if they start negotiating with, some of the major players like the South Koreas and the Japanese, that obviously a lot of electronics in the US are from those places, and then also negotiate with places like New Zealand, Australia and Europe, then that will definitely help.
We've been it off lightly in the sense of the tariffs, but maybe not on the investment profiles.
But also the US dollars come down as well, so that's helped our.
So there could be some winners. Could have some of our. We might see lower interest rates. We might see some new export markets emerge for us. Yeah,
well, definitely there'll be a redistribution of your exports. So, if you're exporting beef to the US, do you continue to export it to US, or do you, back the government of Australia and New Zealand, which are trying to negotiate, good trade deals with Europe, and you send your beef to Europe rather than the US? Just has to stay on the ship a bit longer. Yeah.
So and our negotiators are good too, I think. So they'll be hopefully at the forefront of this. So there will be opportunity.
Yes, there's definitely opportunity. There's always opportunity when there's a pullback, and as you said, the fund managers may be taking that opportunity and buying on these dips. But
because that's the thing with economics, isn't it? It was like for every cause is an effect, and every effect is cause, and so there is opportunity. But boy, just as New Zealand and the world is starting to see some green shoots, and we're just getting out of this 5-year hole, really, which is what we've been in 5 years. I think it hasn't been 1 year; it's been 5. And then we're back with this sort of nincompoop economics, which is a tax on the world and takes us back 100 years.
It's back to the 1930s, so nearly 100 years, and it's unprecedented in our lifetime. And when you compare all those other collapses in markets and that sort of thing, they were general collapses around a lot of things happening. This is one person's self-inflicted
policy
harm and policy that is affecting the whole world.
But it's a delusional policy. It's are we going to see the world suddenly rush off to America and set up their manufacturing bases there because of it?
Well, and even if they do, to get the manufacturing up and running is going to take 3, 4, 5 years, and Trump won't be there in 3 or 4 years.
That's right, and the policy will change, and investment's a waste of time.
And the whole part of trade is, it's much cheaper to make goods in Vietnam, which has been taxed or tariffed at 47%, and China and places like that, where the price the wages are the same as what a US worker earns a week. They earn in a year, so so the cost of these items will go up. So it's definitely inflationary and definitely affect growth, and it will be a big distribution of trade away from the US. And you're already seeing that with Land Rover or Jaguar Land Rover basically saying we're not going to export anything to the US.
And there's going to be a bit of this going on too. They won't be the only ones. As always, it's the unskilled and the poor that effectively get hit, right?
Absolutely. And this is probably the most regressive of any of the taxes. Regressive means it affects the lower income person a lot more, and the average household in the US will be worse off by between $1,800 to around $2,500 US per year.
It's quite significant.
So, if the price of milk goes up from $4 to $5, you and I can wear that. But for a low-income household, you know, a 20% or 25% increase in price definitely affects you a lot.
It would just come off the back of, you know, huge price increases anyway in food and services and so forth across the world. So just as we're poking our head out to some green shoots, we get this. Do you think this would push us back into recession?
Definitely is on the cards, and a lot of people saying, you know, the big investment banks like the JP Morgan saying it's 80% chance of going into a recession, and lower growth and inflation going up, but interest rates will have to come down rather than the market stagnating completely.
Well, the good thing is there is room for the interest rates to come back.
Yeah, that's right.
They went pretty high, so we've got them coming back, so that's a good thing. But the other thing around inflation, you know, we've just fought this bloody disease, because that's what it is. It's a disease. It pinches your pay. So we've just fought that. And now we face this. Do you think Trump had any idea what? I mean, this is a tax on the world.
It is a tax.
It's an inflationary tax.
Yes, exactly. But the brunt of it will be borne by the US consumer.
Yeah,
and the mums and dads that have voted for him are going to be the worse off.
Yeah, and I think. Do you think he knew what? Do you think he know? I mean, this is about Utu, isn't it? This is about revenge. This is about.
Well, he's come up with this idea of revenge and tariffs since he was in his 20s or 30s, and a misguided thing that the US is their trade balance. With, say, places like Vietnam, definitely Vietnam sends a lot more goods to the US than US sends to Vietnam, and that's been the basis of the tariffs. And one person, Musk, has basically come out and said the guy who created it is a moron.
I mean, this is the work of a madman. I mean, Trump himself will lose wealth in this.
Oh, of course.
Undoubtedly.
And he will lose face, and also he may have to backtrack pretty quickly because you've got the midterm elections next year in the US, and they sort of kick off their campaigning in their fall, which is our September, October, November. So therefore, by the end of this year, a lot of his Republican mates in Congress and Senate are going to get voted out next year unless they push to get this turned around. Yeah,
but this will take a long time to negotiate because it's one-on-one, country on country. They're all lining up now at the door of the White House to do deals. Yeah. I reckon Winston probably had some effect over there, Winston Peters. I think we're at 10%. We're probably the luckiest.
I think.
But we don't have tariffs on anyone. I mean, we're a free trade guinea pigs from decades ago.
Yeah, and we've been one of the forefronts in that and other things, other world issues as well, like the climate change and nuclear energy and stuff as well.
So they say it could knock 5% off our economic growth, 0.5%, sorry. Now, at 0.5% coming off, our base is not that high. Mm-hmm. We're lucky to be sort of doing 2% at the moment, so if you're coming off that, it's close to putting us into that recession. We haven't got much room to move.
No, that's right. And the Reserve Bank in New Zealand has an announcement this afternoon. It'll be interesting to see whether they go 0.25%.
Well, they may have to go from 1/4 to half. Mm. They may up that, but who knows? Yeah.
And the US is the same. The Federal Reserve is at the beginning of the year said there'll be 2 rate cuts this year. Now the market's picking 4 or 5.
Yeah, so it's good for people with mortgages potentially in New Zealand, but that is if you can keep your job.
That's correct.
I mean, if you have a reduction in economic growth, that's a reduction in jobs.
That's right. And same in the US. It's not.
You think we'll see job losses?
Mm. He's saying.
You think we'll see job losses?
Oh yes, it's definitely. It's already happening in the US. It's already happening as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as people can't sell their goods for a reasonable price or be able to sell them in the markets they were before, then there's going to be an oversupply. Farmers, are going to have to dump their beef in Australia and New Zealand compared to, exporting it to the US at a good price.
He could. Is it too late for him to pull out of everything and say, "Oh, I got this wrong," and just go back to where we were?
Not at all. But as long as he's consistent, and the biggest problem is he's put in tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, then reversed them, then put them back on again.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a consistent, certain message, and it doesn't matter where it is, and that's what the market was trying to react to today. And in the Asian markets yesterday, they reacted because there was certainty around negotiation. The 70 countries are lining up to negotiate, and yet, someone comes out and says, "Well, it's going to happen a long time down the line," whereas other people are saying different things. So if they get their rhetoric in line, the certainty, then that will help markets.
How long could it take to recover from this? I mean, how long? When can we say, because it might be that by next week it's the market's settled.
Correct.
I mean, I like the fact that the markets these days appear a lot more mature than they have in other decades.
Yes.
So they're more robust in many ways. That there are fewer cowboys around. Yep. It's a different game with the tech startups and everything, and maybe it's a bit more robust.
Yeah, I think so, and definitely, our trading system, for example, opens on Monday at 12 o'clock and closes on Saturday at 12 o'clock midday, both days, and operates 24 hours for those 5 days, and therefore anyone can take part in the market, whereas in the old days, you could only trade when the market was open, and now there's 24 online trading. You can do what you like.
You walked up to the chalkboard up there in the plaza there, and you saw it all happening. So it's a much more mature market. Hey, I appreciate your time. Yep. Are you hopeful?
Yeah, I'm always hopeful. That's definitely, if you're a trader and you're trying to buy the dip, then maybe the dip's happened, but time will tell.
Have you lost sleep over this?
A little bit. But definitely when you look at the market, other indicators, so you've got the S&P 500, the other indicators are things like the VIX, which is a volatility index, and that's at very high levels. Anything above 17 is bearish, and it's at 56 at the moment.
Yeah.
And then things like...
This is shitting itself.
Well, exactly. So new highs, new lows as well. New highs were 2% and new lows were 98% this morning. So, markets are trying to go up, and but the new highs to new lows is a complete disparity.
It's like an out of control bungee cord, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, and that's what happened today. As I said, it's the biggest turnaround since 1978. And as long as there's consistency and the market has some sort of certainty, then the market may rally. And if you look at the whole Lehman Brothers thing, within 36 trading hours, which is 5 or 6 days, the market had completely gone back to where it was.
Yeah.
So,
do you expect that? I mean, this is a bit long way to go back on this one.
Correct. It's harder to do because of the uncertainty.
Well, and also because of the fact that he may only be 20% through his whole tariff process.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks for the good news.
Cheers, thank you, and good luck with the KiwiSaver.
Thanks.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, so this is pretty telling advice. There's 4 big drops in the world economy. This is one of them. So hold on tight. We've got some letters to the editor, Isaac.
Yes, indeed, we do. Let me scroll down and find them, actually.
Shall
we read out this first one? Hey, mate.
Yeah.
My dad had a fall over 6 months ago and ended up in hospital. My dad's anger issues and a reliance on my mum caused people to intervene, wanting mum to seek help. As a collective, us as a collective wanted this too, as we know how much of a toil this takes on her. Well, that didn't happen, as my mum is happy to do all that. It's sad seeing my dad in the state he is in, basically homebound. It can be weeks before he leaves the house again. But going anywhere for him is super tiring. He gets confused so easily. I visited him today because I had to check on the work vehicle as I had a day off, and I saw how exhausting it is for mum just to have a conversation with him. His health is better than it should be. It's better than it should be, as both my parents had COVID a few weeks ago. Wow. He was put on special medication because he can have breathing difficulties, and with COVID, they thought it would make it worse. If he gets to the point where mum can no longer care for him, I worry about putting him in a home after hearing all of this, obviously referring to our last few episodes about aged care in New Zealand. Duncan, you're the man for bringing this to attention to all of us Kiwis.
Yeah, that's
good
nice.
On you, mate.
Thanks, James. We're not the first ones to do this stuff. The aged care stories have been done for a number of months, years, weeks, and we're not the first, but I appreciate the thought anyway. Duncan, you go to book your flight on in New Zealand to go to Aussie at 6:34 one way. Then when you go to choose your seat, every receipt and another $15 or $25 is added on, and there are no seats that you can have for $634. So you've got to buy more. You have to put more on it. Yeah, that's the thing. So you buy a seat for $634, there's not one available. That's what you're telling us with Air New Zealand. Oh dear, it's Air New Zealand. That's what you get in Fly Jetstar.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, that's us. Thanks for your feedback and your support. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok, Instagram. Flick us an email. Duncan at rover.nz. To my team, thanks, guys. We'll do it again tomorrow. Thanks, Isaac. Thank you, brother. And remember, life is no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth, despite the meltdown. So if you've got any money left, get out and enjoy it. Have a great rest of the day. Take care, New Zealand. Ta-ra.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.